Thank you for joining Let's Meet Where We Eat, conversations with innovation and entrepreneurship leaders who specialize in food and nutrition. Our series is presented by Nourish Cafe and the Food and Nutrition Innovation Institute at the Tufts Friedman School for Nutrition Science and Policy. Enjoy. Hi, everybody, and welcome to, I guess, what's a Valentine's Day edition of Nourish Cafe for the Friedman School at Tufts University. We are excited in our speaker series and our ongoing speaker series today to put a spotlight on Brightseed Bio, which is an unbelievably exciting company. If you're a Trekkie or a futurist like I am, you're going to want to know who Brightseed is. We're really lucky today to have with us Chae, who is a co-founder of Brightseed Bio. And we're going to spend some time today learning about what Lee's background is, how he got to Brightseed Bio, and as students, what he wants all of you to be thinking about as you're going through the Friedman School and considering your next step. So Lee, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, happy to be here and a real honor to get invited.
Fantastic. So I always like to start with asking folks, tell me about Brightseed Bio, as pithy and succinctly as we can, because it's such a, to me, it's a fairly complex forward-facing concept, but what is Brightseed Bio?
Yeah, I think kind of the summary that we have for it is that, Brightseed is a data company that is really driving proactive health by illuminating the connections between plants and people. So what we do is we have an advanced technology platform called Forager. It's AI-based. It allows us to really, at scale, scan and profile different plants and different foodstuffs for all their chemical composition, and also predict using AI how those chemicals work in our bodies to support human health. And so with that knowledge alone, we think it's important. There are different ways we can bring that to people, but we can also make physical products out of those plants and those compounds as well, and deliver them to consumers in the form of as ingredients in food and beverage, perhaps derivatized as therapeutics or in supplements and OTC.
And so when I think about artificial intelligence, it's gaining so much traction. There's so many application spaces where AI can play. Can you tell us a little bit about the genesis of why you guys as co-founders moved to the plant world as your application space for AI?
Yeah, I think some of the bias comes from my background. So briefly, I grew up in the Central Valley of California, very much surrounded by farmlands and the natural world, and very much have been interested in what we eat and what we grow, what we eat, how that's provided to us, and honestly a little concerned about the world's ability to keep producing food as the population grows and times change. So I think know that we have co-evolved around our diet, since the beginning, and I think our diet provides us more than just gross calories or gross proteins that get broken down into amino acids that we reuse. I think there's a real intricate and complex molecular interplay that happens with our diet and the molecular processes in our bodies. And there's all sorts of orthogonal evidence out there that proves that. And one of them was, came out of your efforts, an article in the Lancet that showed, if you take plants out of your diet, you're more than one, 3 times more likely to die a premature death than eating a lot of bad stuff. So as a scientist, particularly a plant scientist, that's a real, that grabs my attention as a fundamental truth. The other one was that pharma has been mining the natural product world for decades. And most, I don't know if you know this, but 2/3 of all US FDA small molecule drugs are based on some form of a natural compound, a small molecule from nature. So with those two sets of evidence, you're like, wow, there's probably a lot more there. And so when I was in my academic training, I trained both in AI and at the bench in molecular biology and molecular genetics, all focused on understanding plant systems. And the reason why you do use an AI is because, there has been, a plant biology effort for centuries. There has been a natural product effort for centuries. There's been drug discovery for decades. And we've only gotten so far. So with AI, what the benefits of AI, and I get asked all the time, why do you create an AI? And you create an AI when there's a phenomena that is there, but we just can't see it. So an AI can see deeper than we can by looking at patterns of information and making linkages that we just cannot process that much. But it can also do it at a scale and a speed that we can't either. And so, back in my Stanford days, we did back of the envelope calculations, and to the best of our calculations, what we can, given based on genomic data, things that are coming out of the Joint Genome Institute, we probably understand less than 1% of all the compounds that plants produce, like understand or even know that's out there. So that's a massive problem that needs deep intelligence that can scale and go at speed. So that's a long-winded way of saying that's how we arrived at, hey, maybe we should apply this to this AI to this problem in Brightseed.
Well, and it's sort of like looking around at your natural environment and saying, wait a minute, like we're the problem, the solution to the problem is staring us right in the face.
Right.
And we now have the technology to understand it. I always, though, think about how natural medicinal tinctures and herbs and different things have been around forever, right? I mean, as long as we've walked the planet, we've had different ways to heal ourselves that we discovered in nature. How much of this is sort of going back and validating, but then putting a very future forward spin on what would have been like, the community's doctor that relied on local herbs to heal you?
Yeah, that's a great point, Kate. I think that's like a third line of evidence that you just talked about, that there's been societies that have used these types of approaches, these types of solutions, I would say, these tinctures or extracts for health, and they must do it for a reason, right? So I think part of it is looking back at like acknowledging that and honoring that, but really those are just the tip of the icebergs. The things that are out there. If you think about, again, that represents less than 1% of human knowledge around plants and their compounds. Then you have to think that there's, what are the odds that there's way more out there to find? And as someone with the statistics background, yeah, the odds are really great.
The odds are really great.
So, yeah, and what
I'm looking at my backyard right now.
Yeah.
Okay, like my window's there, and if I'm looking at my backyard and anyone's looking out the window, I mean, how much of what's out there do we just? I mean, is it possible that there's like a million other things in my backyard that we just haven't discovered and don't understand? And like, are there just certain parts of the world that have a lot of dense plant matter that we need to explore, or is it everywhere? Is the opportunity everywhere, or is it geographically focused in certain areas?
I would say it's everywhere, but I bet you different regions have different, the different vegetation, and those will have biases towards the types of things that they produce. Probably locally, again, that the whole co-evolution piece, part of what we grow is that's, artificial selection. So we've domesticated these things for a reason. I would say to your answer, there's probably a ton out there. And I can give one example is that we were looking at what the natto bean once, just ran it through our platform just to take a look at it. And there's a compound in natto bean that's supposed to help with blood glucose levels. And we found it, we saw it, we studied it, and we thought it was interesting. Then we looked in our database and thought like, and so this is a prized, food stuff that takes fermentation and it's expensive. And we found it in a common food plant that's grown in Latin America. So something very different. And so to me, that answers the question that it's around us. And the thing with the platform, with Forager, and what we're doing is that, and kind of modern science today is really the question is, can we understand the molecular basis for these interactions? Because if we can understand the molecular basis, then some of the complaints around tinctures and extracts is that they don't always work, and maybe that's because the quality of them aren't the same. Perhaps there's one batch that is concentrated in the active components, while others are less, but no one knows what the active components are. So you just think, oh, if we do this parsley extract, we're going to get the benefits. But now we have a legitimate way of saying, hey, these are the active ingredients that you should keep your eye out on, and if they're there, they should help.
100%. But Lee, your point that you're making immediately draws the listener to say, then let's talk about standards. So, are we going to a place where, without standards of saying this parsley extract is the same as that parsley extract. Like,
Mhm.
can you talk about why in your world, how you guys view the world of standards and this
Mhm.
and the evolution of what you guys are doing and why it's important?
Yeah, I think that's a super perceptive question, Katie. I think two things need to happen or be accepted. One is that yes, we there's a way for us to understand and prove out what the active components are in these products, and perhaps standardization is a good call, or at least like on the label being able to say how much is in there, just so that just for consumer power, so the consumer can choose what it is they want. I think the second thing and the bigger shift that's needed is that that food and these types of components are not pharmaceutical therapeutics, right? So like it's not like we want to guzzle like a gram of this stuff because we want like boom to solve this massive problem. The idea of food and the bioactive components in food is really to bathe our bodies in these bioactives. These bioactives, there could be hundreds of them that each work at a low level on different areas of our biology. And by just eating a good diet and a diverse diet, every day we get this slow, steady bathing. And to me, I think that sounds like biologically more true to how us as organisms operate, rather than taking this, take this thing or we're going to inject it in you and it's super high potent. So I think it's also standards, yes, but also this acknowledgement that, hey, this is a different way of approaching health, and it's going to be milder, and it's going to be, a longer term, and it's going to be something that's a daily habit.
It really is where precision nutrition and food as medicine tend to intersect in many ways. It's interesting. Yeah. So on a slightly different topic, when I hear Forager, which is your, your product platform, and I think about having to catalog and understand all these plants and all these places, I literally picture like people out in the rainforest, like trying to pick leaves and trying like, how, I mean, somewhere the information for these plants has to come from. I think about like CIGAR that has the International Potato Center, like,
right.
How do you go about even beginning to collect the molecular data on like millions and millions of plants? Does it already exist, or do you guys have to literally forge around and do it?
We have to forge around and do it. Like, so it all starts with quality data, and the data, what we found is that we need to generate it in-house. That's what all of our computational models rely on, and in true computer fashion, it's garbage in, garbage out. So we need high quality data in, and so there are specifics around what we do that are trained on the type of data we produce. So because of that, we do have a whole plant sourcing team that sources plants from around the world. We bring them in physically to our site here. We have raw materials processing workflows that we have to transform the materials. We keep a library, so we have a whole room that's this big library of powders from different plants from around the world, and then from there we enter them into our chemistry workflows, and our chemistry workflows get digitized into data, into our computational workflows. So we actually do that here. And one thought in expanding the company as we grow is to start forming small centers that do this in different parts of the world. So a great place to be would be Africa. A great place to be would be Southeast Asia. Latin America would be another place. I think I've just given away our company strategy for the next number of years is to set up these centers. And it just takes a certain amount of scientists and agronomists and plant biologists and chemists, together. And we don't need massive companies there. We just need centers, and we can, start cataloging these natural foodstuffs in these areas.
That's amazing. I feel like I want to go on a forager like retreat. You guys should have like some sort of like, come on one of our trips and help us, find stuff.
That's right. That's why Jennifer's here, is to find all these adventurous folks at Tufts with the vision and the principles to take.
So speaking of that, I'd love to be able to close on you talking to our students about Let's talk about artificial intelligence and data. I mean, our students come to the Friedman School to study food,
Yeah.
nutrition science and food system innovation and the policy and the science behind those. But data science, artificial intelligence, this advanced technology is continuing to play a larger and larger role in the field if we're really going to solve the problems. Can you talk to our students about how they might want to think about the levels of data expertise they might want to acquire while they're at school, and what's important when you go out, when you're hiring someone going out in the world? Like, is there a base level of information data science students are going to need? Any student?
Yeah, great question. So I've had in my past in different organizations built out these teams before, and obviously have worked with other companies and their teams, et cetera. And myself and my cohort coming through academic training have all gone through this. So just a real practical advice, I think there are essentially three different types of data scientists out there. And they all can have that moniker, but I see them all differently, and I build teams around them differently. So one are the folks who are really kind of computer scientists and engineers. So they're very good at developing databases, programming AIs, programming pipelines. They love coding and all that. So that's kind of goes into the engineering bucket, data engineering for me. There are the folks who are analysts in my vision. These are people who can get the data, really work with the data to understand the data, interpret the data. What's it saying? And usually it's a combination of both being able to handle that amount of data, knowing the tools. They don't build the tools, but they can use the tools. But they're really good at interpreting the data because they themselves have some grounding in a discipline, whether it's
And
economic.
this would be like being able to do a SQL query, being able to interpret it through Tableau, that kind of thing, or are we talking?
Yeah, just a bunch of data and being able, like you look at like a figure panel, and that's really in a journal article, that's really data interpretation, right? In a molecular paper, it might be gels and blots that you're looking at, but in a data format, you're looking at a lot of data. It could be on populations of people and some kind of study or an intervention, and you really have to bring your expertise as a scientist in that field to look at the numbers and understand should we really be looking at these numbers. Maybe we need to do something in the background and stratify it a different way. Is this statistical model really the appropriate model, and what's the best visual that will capture immediately the significant finding? So those are kind of, for me, like analyst type positions, and they're fantastic because they combine knowledge with the ability to not have to have a computer scientist next to them and asking the computer scientist, hey, can you run these? They have enough ability to run scripts and use tools, etc.
But they may have the subject matter expertise of a nutrition background, a molecular biology background. Yeah.
And that's super key. I find folks who come in with just purely data science and they don't know the phenomena, it takes a while to build that intuition, really, is what it is, right?
Yeah, completely.
So it's tough. But
that's why our students are so great, because they do have that. They're very well taught on that part of it. Yeah.
Exactly. That, I mean, fundamental piece of advice. Remember your groundings as a scientist, what you trained in, know that field, know that literature. And then the data science component is the thing that will blow open the doors for you in that vein. And I think, and the last part, the data science third bucket, are the ones who are able to, have really good intuition around the phenomena, et cetera, but also really good on the computational theory side. And what they're able to do is then be able to predict or infer events. And in order to do that, it takes usually custom use of data sets, is knowing what data sets to use, what to find, what's out there, the caveats around the data, ask the appropriate question, and then build the processes and train the algorithms to provide an answer. So it's answering a question, but it's about a prediction or an inference, that it's not just understand the data is here and then we're interpreting it. Like that second group is predicting what might happen. So those are kind of the three flavors, and a high functioning team will have members of all of them, right? In order to handle all the applications and needs of the company.
That's really cool. I am jealous of everyone who works at your company. It sounds like such a cool place to be. And all of you that we've met from Brightseed are such phenomenal people. And so what an incredible company, Lee, you guys have bought, that you've started and that you continue to grow. And I just can't wait to see how the market continues to develop. Given where you guys are sort of forging ahead in this, you guys are the leader in this, and I'm so excited for the future and the knowledge and the opportunity space ahead for all the other entrepreneurs that are going to be able to take what you guys are doing, because there's going to be scaffolding of other opportunities that can feed into this, build into it for a cool future.
Yeah, I always like, even in our teams, it's within the company, we always preach, like, there's not going to be one person who drags that football over the finish line. It's going to take a team. And in this industry and what needs to happen in terms of human health and our future, it's going to take a lot of us to do it, right? So there's just not one company that's just going to do it.
What do the digital health companies do? What do the healthcare companies do? You're right, it's an ecosystem. And how we start to build out new healthcare ecosystems around some of the intelligence that you're building and the products you're developing is just fascinating. And we're going to have you come back every year so you continue to update us on all the incredible growth of your company.
I'd love that. Yeah.
And hopefully we'll have some tough students to meet along the way. So we got to make sure that happens as well at Brightseed.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that's the message. It can be done. You know, I came out of the lab about 10 years ago into industry, and the next thing I know, I mean, if you find a need and you have a vision, then you can find people who align with your vision, and you'll get the opportunity. It can be done, you know.
Love it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Lee, thank you so much for spending time with us. I know you're going to stick around for Q&A with the students, but for us and our get to know the founder, Lee Chae, Brightseed Bio, thank you so much for sharing time with us.
Happy to do, my pleasure.